The following podcast is taken from a live broadcast on Inspire FM.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, welcome to Sister Speak. You're here with me, Mariam. Also joined with me in the studio is
me, Fareen,
and Alia.
This is a pre-record and today's topic we'll be talking about the importance of community. But before we do that, can Fareen tell us what our show is about?
Yeah, so our show is a platform for Muslim girls to voice their own opinions on current events and issues and form discussions on general topics such as religion, culture, politics, etc. Please note all opinions and views are our own and we respect all other views.
Yes, and if you want to join in the discussion, although this is a pre-record, we would encourage you to message us on Sister Speak Instagram. We are on Twitter, or X as they say, and we are on TikTok, and we'd love to hear your views. So before we delve into the main topic today, which is importance of community, we do a segment called the Thought of the Week, and this is a time where we share reflection, a personal anecdote, or something that we've just been thinking at. But Fareen, you haven't been on the show for a while because you've been in university. So can you tell us your Thought of the Week? Good to have you back.
Thank you, Mariam. It's good to be back. Let's say my thought of the week. I'm just going to say with my most recent thoughts, that's me moving out my room and going out from my, alone time, me being in just one little room in a shared kitchen, to the chaos of my house and being around my family, which is like, alhamdulillah, I'm used to it, obviously. But it's really weird being there daily, all the time. And I have to change up my routine and match my family's, which I've been living with them my whole life. But it's still so weird in this year, and there's so much noise everywhere. And we recently also got a cat now. So yeah, we recently got a cat. It's my hard launch to everyone. So I'm kind of adjusting to it because I am scared of animals. And it's been really chaotic. I'm still trying to put all my stuff together and everything. I have a mental chaos, my room's a mess, everything like that. So I'm still trying to do it. But, I'm enjoying my time with my family and seeing my siblings every day. And obviously my two brothers every day and being with my parents. And we're hanging out so much these days for some reason. We're always going out. So that's my thought of the week, alhamdulillah. I'm just glad that I'm out of uni, done with my first year, done with my exams and everything. And now I can just enjoy this 4 months of summer.
That's amazing. It's so lovely to see your progression. For those who do listen to Sister Speak, you would know that she has talked about her experience being in sixth form, and now she's completed her first year of university. Where does the time go?
I know, it's crazy. When I joined, I think it was I was finishing my first year of sixth form, and now I'm finishing my first year of uni.
An amazing achievement. Alia, what's your thought of the week?
I think I feel like now my thought of the week has changed. So I'm just gonna build up on what Fareen's spoken about with uni. I'm still at uni. I don't finish until August, but I'm thinking about how it's literally coming to an end, and it feels like it's been 3 months. Literally, it doesn't feel like it's been a long time. And so much has happened in this year. Alhamdulillah, it's been a good year. I'm just now reflecting on it.
Yeah,
it's been a good year.
I feel like every time we think that we're starting uni, it feels like such a long journey, and now literally first year is finished.
And how many years do you have? 2 years.
I have 3 years left. Yeah, with placement year and everything, but we still have a long journey to go, but it's still so short. And I feel like me going into uni, I changed so much, especially during Ramadan, because I did it in uni. So during Ramadan in uni, I don't know how I seeked. Yeah, I think what? Okay.
It's weird.
I just gained a lot of knowledge. I'm just going to go with that. I just gained a lot of knowledge being by myself. And I reflected so much. And I prayed all my prayers in time. I think I've talked about this in my Ramadan reflection one. But just me being at uni by myself, I learned so much. And I'm really, really glad that I did it by myself. It was such a long, self-reflecting journey for me.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting because you mentioned how before you were living with your family, and our main topic is about the importance of community and living as a collective. But I think equally it's important to have that time when you're isolated, because you learn so much about yourself. You can exercise introspection and you realize a lot of things about yourself that you perhaps wouldn't have if you were with your family, because those aspects of you are unrevealed. And so certain situations kind of bring that out of you. So I think it's really important to have that space and time. And even if you don't have the scope to live by yourself or you don't have any means to do so, I think just isolating yourself, I think that's why in Islam we do itikaf, because it gives you time to reflect. And I think that's something that's really valued in our religion. So it's really interesting for you to make that comparison. And even just that, as you mentioned, you were living with your family for your whole life, and then now you're going back to them and you're finding it hard to adjust. It's because I think in nature, when you just have your own way and your own dynamic and your own routine, it's difficult to readapt to your family again. So I think it's just really interesting to kind of see that kind of distinction. And I think for me, someone who constantly speaks about introspection, I think that's probably why I think that's quite an interesting thought. Ala, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, like I was just kind of actually just thinking about the fact that you've had to make all these decisions away from your family, and that's quite I feel like, because we're both the same age,
Yeah.
come out of like college together. Like I'm thinking about, obviously I'm living at home, and like most of the decisions and like choices that I make are very, very influenced by my family. The fact that you've been alone and had to do it by yourself is so like, I have a lot of respect for that. I admire
Thank you.
because it's like I'm even like little things like, oh, what should I eat for dinner today? You know? Like,
Yeah.
even little things like that. It's a lot of, and this is gonna sound so silly of me, but it sounds very like you know when your mum does it, your mum's doing it. Oh, she thinks about these things beforehand. It's a lot of cognitive. What's the word? Strain.
Just thinks about it. Yeah.
It's very, very stressful. Like even little things.
I think a lot of people resonate with that, especially when they coin the term called adulting, because now the things that you were kind of accustomed to, where your parents looking after you, you have to do yourself, and that's quite overwhelming initially. But I think with time you kind of evolve, and then you bring your own routine into your life, and you introduce that, and then you don't want to readapt to anyone else's.
Yeah, definitely. Honestly, when I don't know, I mentioned this on the show, but when I first moved into my room, I needed to have some white noise in the background because I was so used to my parents talking or my siblings yelling or whatever. And now I have to sleep in complete silence, otherwise I can't sleep. But obviously that doesn't happen in my house. Everyone's always talking. So it was definitely, it's still so hard adapting to that routine. And I don't know where my clothes are and everything like that. But, now I have to go back to that routine. So just switching back and forth. But
I think that makes you someone that's agile. I think,
I can just adapt to anything.
And I think for me personally, because I don't have many siblings, I only have one sibling. My house is all quiet. So when I was in university, I found the library so loud because people used to talk and I couldn't concentrate. And I specifically used to go to the silent zone, and still people were talking, and I had to use white noise to cancel out people talking. So I used it the opposite way. So
I can't revise unless there's noise around me.
Yeah,
I can't
same.
study because I even remember in sixth form the library was always noisy, or even sitting in the silent area you can just hear things. And when I'm studying at home, I can't study with that noise.
But do you not think that distracts you because someone else is having a conversation?
I get more distracted when it's quiet because then I get lost in my own
in your own thoughts. Yeah.
Or I think of a way to fill up the noise. I'm thinking of ways to I could just do anything.
That's interesting. I think for me, I need silence for me to actually think about what I'm reading. Because my degree was English literature, so I had to do a lot.
So you probably had to analyze and everything.
I had to read a lot. I had to read 4 books a week, and I had to.
What was your favorite book that you read?
That's a very question that everyone asks me. I don't really. I can't remember because
you can't choose a favorite book.
I don't think so. I think I've come to a point where now at university I used to read all the books. So I had to read 4 books a week, and then we did the secondary reading. And the way I kind of made my own strategy was I would read 50 pages 1 hour. I was quite fast at reading, and then. Yeah, at that time I was, mashallah.
Soon again, inshallah.
Inshallah. And my strategy was that I used to read a synopsis of books before I read it, so I already knew what was going to happen. So I would just analyze and skim read. So I was able to read a whole book very quickly and understand what the concept is. And I knew what I was going to be looking for, main themes, because I knew my whole module would probably be about, for example, if I'm studying Edwardian literature, the things that we would be talking about would be gender and socialization and all that type of thing. So I just would skim read it, understand it, and then I would just put markers in case the questions that we'd get at the end of our module would be I would need a quotation. So I was quite strategic in that sense, but I think that developed over time because I think one of the things that I really have developed is the understanding of you can't really work smart unless you worked hard. So initially I used to work in a way that wasn't really efficient, but I only developed that efficiency because I understood, okay, what is my result that I want to acquire and how can I get there quicker? But you can't do that unless you actually gone through a longer process. So I think for me personally, just reading really does open your mind. But I think because I think you both can resonate, when you have an interesting topic that you want to study and you do it for a long extensive time, it takes out the fun out of it.
Yeah, you get bored of it.
So it's revisiting it. And I think going back to the main point of isolating yourself and being in a collective, I think just people have different ways of kind of being productive.
You're surrounded by too many people all the time.
I think finding a balance. I think that's in Islam, Mizan, the Arabic word is Mizan. So I think it's just really learning about yourself. And something, it's important that if you really like silence, you need to push yourself to be in around noise. Being too comfortable isn't conducive
to get out of your comfort zone,
to thrive as well. So I think that was really interesting. I am going to move to the next part of the show where I like playing this game called Freshly Grounded.
I love those cards. They always make you dig so
I've
deep.
Never seen them before.
They're really good. You'll see now.
You're going to enjoy them. I like a lot of reflection. So the first question I have, Alia, because since you've never played before,
Yes.
and I think this ties quite nicely with what we've been discussing. What was a point in your life when you started to believe in yourself?
See, I told you, you have to dig so
I
deep.
stopped believing in myself. I feel like I believed in myself a lot as a child.
That's
in
really
my
good.
teenage years, but now I don't.
You're going backwards.
Yeah, like I feel like when it comes to like my confidence and stuff in certain things, I'm like, no, maybe I can't do it. Like I feel like I'm more cautious as I'm getting older. Whereas when I was younger, I was like, no, like I was very black and white, especially like in high school. I was like, oh, like say for example, like with my GCSEs, I was like, but I just have to revise for this time a day. But now I'm like, oh my god, now I have to revise, and you know, I
You overthink
things.
it more.
I complicate things more. So I'm trying to, as to like solitude and like finding who I am again. I feel like I do need to go back to that. Life is as hard as you make it. Like there's a weird statement, but life is as hard as you
It's
make
true.
it. As bad as it sounds, because alhamdulillah, like honestly, we're living life. You know, we're studying. That's such a blessing. You know, you're living alone. That's such a blessing. I'm living with my family. It's such a blessing. Our lives, especially here in England, so easy. With all due respect, is so, especially in Luton, because like you don't have that social pressure of you know it's hard to be a Muslim, it's hard to be an Asian, it's hard to be Pakistani. But like we don't have that. You know, that's what I think like is what kind of helped choose the topic. It's just that you know it's as I know I understand you have certain challenges you face, but you have to focus on the positives of Luton more than the negatives, and that's what makes living in Luton nice.
Well, thank you for that thought. I think it's really interesting that you talk about how you were confident as a child and you shifted to now of lacking confidence. And I think a lot of people feel that because when you're younger, you don't attribute yourself to any outcomes. You just go with the journey. Whereas as you're older, you're measured by results. And so I think that's something that you're constantly told, especially when you're going through the school system. Your achievements are based on grades and
merit,
numbers. Yeah. So your merit actually isn't really acknowledged because merit could be defined in many ways. I think it's someone's hard work may not result in something that's seen or perceived as great, but actually their work ethic must be incredible, and that might be actually more conducive for them to thrive than just a grade. So I think those kind of conversations or kind of definitions we don't really instill them in our young people, and I think I resonate with that as well in terms of when I was younger I didn't think too much about how I'm perceived. I just thought about how do I feel and how do I want to do certain things and let's just try it. I think we were more,
but now you're more cautious.
risk averse.
I'd like to hear how you feel about that. Do you think you're more confident in your abilities now?
You know, I literally when I came here, I feel like I was so confident in Spain. When I look back, I used to do so much things. So when I came here, I was really wary of what I was doing, especially because it was a new country and everything like that, obviously. But then in sixth form, I got really, really comfortable, and all I wanted to do was get out of my comfort zone. And I think when I started thinking, you know, I can do things, is when I got my first job here and in Bury Park. Sometimes a scary place, really nice place, sometimes scary, but there is where I started getting out of my comfort zone and I applied to so many things. Obviously I got rejected from many things, it's part of life, but through that is where I was like, I can apply to everything. I get accepted anywhere eventually, and I started having a job. Then I joined radio and everything like that, and just confidence just builds up. All you have to do is, with my parents' support, obviously they were like, you can do this, you know. So yeah, with my parents and me just actively seeking to be involved in this community, in any activities that I can do, get a job, be kind of independent when I was in sixth form. And then from there, I just started going up and up, alhamdulillah. But yeah, there's always obviously some moments where you don't believe in yourself. And there's so many things that I step back from, but I just take that as a blessing that, you know, it just wasn't for me. And so it's important to realize what you can actually do, because you need to have that scope for failure. And that is something that I always had in my mind, that you get accepted, you get rejected from things.
It's all from Allah.
Yeah, literally.
Oh, that's very profound. I think a lot of us can resonate with that. And I think for me personally, I think it's you have to recognize you're always evolving. So there might be phases in your life where you feel very confident, phases in your life that you don't feel confident. And I think for me, one of the things that kind of defined that was my company. So when I was around people who are very supportive, as Farine said, her parents are her biggest support system. When I plunged into opportunities where I thought people are very inspiring and they made me feel like I'm valued, that intrinsically made me feel like a better person, and I felt that actually I can do these things because I'm seeing the people around me who I respect so much are doing great work. So I think those are kind of reflections I had. So thank you both for that, those kind of answers. The next question, which is quite similar, I'd say, but I think it's just delving a little bit more deeper, if I may. What do you know about yourself? What do you know about yourself now that you didn't know when you were younger?
Ooh, what do I know about myself now that I didn't know when I was younger? I don't know.
This is a good question.
It's a good question, but I feel like everything, now looking back at my younger self, I feel like everything that I thought of, I'm doing it now. Like, I knew I was going to be, I don't know.
Like certain things, like when I was younger, as I told you, it was very black and white. But I feel like now I'm a lot more optimistic, especially about my future.
No, that's really good.
Like, yeah, do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like now I'm getting older, you actually, like, the reality of everything is determined by Allah makes so much more sense. Everything in your life is always,
that's
you know,
right,
the
I
phrase,
agree.
everything is planned, like, by Allah, makes so much more sense. Like, even for the listeners, you know, I feel like this is something that all of us, like, can definitely agree on, is that when you get to a certain age, that's when it hits you that everything is planned and everything's going to work out a certain way. And there's nothing you can do to change it, obviously, like they say, what you can change it with, but, like, your future is planned out, and that's, like, it's okay. You know,
it makes you feel so much more, like, calm.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, because you're accepting the fact that Allah is the best of planners, and like you said, you can still make dua, but I think it's just comfort knowing all you have to do is tie your camel, and then the rest is with Allah. Farine's very interested in the next question, which I'm now going to ask you.
I want you to read that one.
But before that, I think for me personally, what I wanted to ask her, what did I know? For me, what did I know about myself now that I didn't know when I was younger? I think my strength. I think that this year was the year, or maybe last year, it's the certain experiences I had, I didn't realise I had that strength within me to fight for things that perhaps no one would. And actually that's the case that actually happened. And I think that for me was really eye-opening, because it made me realise that all the things that I do in terms of advocacy and representation and really being passionate about community work, I think in practice, when you yourself are isolated in a situation where you either can become complicit or you can stand up for justice, I chose the option of standing for justice. Despite me facing very detrimental consequences, I didn't realise until I got out of the situation, and I chose to get out of the situation, that I stood up for justice, and something that I didn't. And if someone told me if I was a young kid that you would be doing this, I would be very shocked, because I think situations really bring out the best in you sometimes, and you have to kind of accept that like Alia said, that everything is predestined, you know. So knowing that Allah had wrote that for me is something that's really comforting. But I think there was like this during Ramadan, Umm Sulaiman did this series, and your whole life is showed to you before you are born, and Allah asks the fetus, like, do you want to come into life? And you make that choice. So there's something that's worth living, and I think that's so profound, that you saw something in your whole entire life that's worth living for. So you just have to kind of explore it.
Yeah. That's amazing, Mariam. That's really, really deep. And it goes back to you just put your whole trust in God, you know, everything that you do. And you think of every single difficult situation, you literally pray. I don't know about you guys, but I always pray extra, or I always make like extra. I always like tahajjud when I'm in a really difficult situation. And I really like to, and I really like to do it before Fajr. Normally, let's say I wouldn't wake up for Fajr on time, but when I'm in a difficult situation is when I remember God the most. But also when, you know, good situations, you know, you should always be grateful. But I feel like when I'm in difficult situations is the one thing that I always go back to.
Yeah, gratitude is a very big thing.
Yeah.
But even like gratitude is a big thing, but I feel like, you know, when you're going through them tough times, then you remember, like, you know, this is meant to be. Like, that's
you just accept it.
That's when I feel like that's when your bond with Allah really, like, that's when you really make it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that contentment, I think, is really important. I think a lot of people strive for happiness, but that's very fleeting, and it's something that we don't really acquire. But having contentment derives from that, knowing that Allah is the one that's taking care of it all. Sometimes we may not understand it, but later on we'll develop hindsight. We'll develop hindsight. Oh, this is why this happened, and actually, if it turned the way that I wanted it to happen, things would have been. It would have been consequential. So, I think it's just really important, and it's insane that both of you are so young, and yet you're having these reflections. So. It's a huge achievement, and I think it's very promising. I wish I had those kind of reflections when I was younger, but I do think it's cumulative. You kind of learn as you grow through life, and you may go through things that you might think are very devastating, but you'll get through it. And I think another thing is that don't go through it alone. I think a lot of the young people don't realize that it's really important to have dialogue, and even if you don't know how to articulate it or express things, I think finding someone within your own friend circle or even your family member to give you that advice is really important, because sometimes when you're going through difficulty, you're quite clouded and you won't be able to make judgments. And also if you're inexperienced as well, sometimes I think a lot of people, when they grow older, they realize this is why my parents said something. Fareen talks about it a lot.
Yeah, I do.
And then you start yourself saying the same things, because actually life experience kind of throws you and shows you that way. Which is a nice segue for my next question, which is finish the sentence. When I am when I am double my age, I would like to be.
Oh my god.
Well, obviously the first thing that comes to mind.
How old would you be?
If I was double my
36. Let's not talk about numbers.
When I'm double my age, I would just like to be, I don't know, content with life. Obviously, still a Muslim, still on my deen, with my iman higher than, I don't know how to say it, like as high as it can be. Yeah. And hopefully married. I don't know how many things I can add to it, but I just want to be content with life, honestly. Obviously I'm gonna go through problems and everything, but wherever I am, I just want to be like alhamdulillah, for everything. That's where I want to be.
100%. Like I feel like it's such a hard question.
Yeah, I know.
At that age, definitely like more abundant with my ibadah, like my worship. Definitely. That's something I'm trying to work on now. Like, as I feel like at that age, I'm gonna be like working full time. I will be studying. Maybe I'll have more time. But then at the same time, I feel like me studying isn't really an excuse. As bad as it sounds, like it's not really an excuse. But I feel like working full time, maybe few children. It just sounds so weird to talk about. It's so weird.
In a few years' time, you'll listen back to the show
and we'll be like, we'll tell our kids like, oh my god, listen to this.
This is my diary.
Oh my god, I think that's a good reflection question. Where do you want to be in WH?
I think same as Fareen. I think I've mentioned this question before. I'd like to be content.
Yeah,
that's it. Definitely.
And I think I would like to be an individual that Allah's pleased with, and I'm pleased with Him. And I should always be pleased with Him. But I think having that feeling of just, I know my Lord is always taking care of me. And it's very easy to say, but I think
so hard
emulating that or adopting that is very, very difficult. And I think in terms of just practicalities, though, I'd like to be obviously a wife and mother, and I'd like to have completed Hajj. Yes, actually, I want to do that imminently, to be honest. But yeah, I think just content, like very content. That I think whatever comes my way, it won't impact me. Yeah. I just love how we don't have any materialistic aspirations. You know why? Because if I was like 5 years back, I would have said I want to be rich, or I want to have a lot of money.
I want to have a really good stable job.
Like, the kind of things you say when you're like a kid and you're like, I just want this and I want this car and I want this big house.
6 months ago.
But I think it's fine. I think having those aspirations.
It's good to have those aspirations, but I don't think it should be.
Reason. So I think if you want to accumulate wealth, that's completely fine. But how do you want to spend that wealth?
Yeah.
And you have to make dua that wealth doesn't corrupt you, and you don't become a means of where people are being destroyed, because wealth can destroy people, right? So I think it's okay to want to have these kind. You can ask Allah for any desire you have, so long as it's within the boundaries or within the intentions are positive, right? So if you want to acquire so much wealth, so then that you can have passive income, so then you can do more volunteering work. I think it's just having good intentions.
I got asked that question. What are your financial goals for the future? And it was a question that really upset me. Like, in the moment, I was like in a very, I don't want to say, basically they were teasing me. The person was teasing me. They're like, yeah, but what are your financial goals? And I just got so upset. I was like, I don't even want money. Take it. Like, sometimes you just hit a point and you're like, it's not even worth
You
it.
just
It's not
you
even
just don't
worth the
care. I feel like I'm in a point in
It's
my life
not.
as well.
Yeah, like nothing is worth the stress. Honestly, it's not.
Yeah, then you'll come to my age and you would think, okay, I want to have all these financial means because I want to do
Achieve
things.
something.
I want to do things that means more, more valuable in terms of, I want to have a family. I want to do volunteering, but when you come to the practicalities, it's very difficult. When you start a job and you're paying taxes and you're trying to live and you just living, I think in the UK a lot of Muslims are realizing it's very difficult. But also I think we lack financial literacy, so we haven't learned how to compound
Manage,
our
yeah.
compound our wealth in a way that we can actually do things that are positive for our community, because we're so fixated on surviving, because that's all we can do. We don't have the scope or the capacity to help others as much as we could have if we had that financial literacy. And I think that's really important. And when you look at history as well in Islam, it wasn't just about spreading the message. There was a financial backing in that. Even if you just think about the main example, the Prophet ﷺ and Khadija radiallahu anha, she financially helped him to spread the message because she had that wealth, right? So wealth is not something that we're not saying that we can't minimize.
Avoid.
It's something that's really crucial, and actually it provides a lot of power and platform for us to be able to achieve the things that we do. But I think having mizan and having ihsan and thinking about how can we be the best in every single kind of sector, because even you think about research, it requires money. But we are coming to the first end of the show, and we'll be talking about importance of community in the next half. Assalamu alaikum.
You're listening to an Inspire FM podcast, making available our popular programs from our daily broadcast on Inspire FM.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, welcome back to Sister Speak. In the first half of the show we shared our reflections and we talked about, we played the game, the Freshly Grounded game, where we delved a little bit deeper of our childhood. But in this half we'll be talking about the importance of community, as it's a very significant topic, especially what we can see around what's happening around the world, how mobilization is important, but that can only happen when people are together. So in this half we'll be talking about the importance of community, making impactful changes, overcoming challenges in the community, and also the role of technology and social media when it comes to communities. So the first question I want to ask Alia is, why is being part of a community important for individual, as you were the one that chose this topic?
The reason why it is very important to be part of the community as an individual is support. Genuinely just support. You have family support and you'll have friendship, but community support is different. And like you see back in the day of the Sahaba and everything, like when a woman was going through something, or she became a widow, all that financial support was from like the community around them. You had the treasury and you had all that financial support. And nowadays I feel like, although like people are on benefits and stuff, we're not making, like a lot of people aren't making ends meet, and it's a really harsh reality. But it is such it's just so real in Luton especially, and a lot of people, they're struggling, but who do they go to? Like some people, they don't have family here, and I could name so many situations where there's either no one to take care of their kids when they're sick, so they have to leave them in like care homes or the hospital. It's hard. It's really, really hard. And that's why I feel like the emphasis on community is so overlooked. Like, you get a lot of people and they preach community this and community that. But I personally, and I'm not going to say nobody's doing anything about it. I know Inspire FM especially are working hard, especially for the youth. The youth is a big one. They are working hard for the youth. But just in general, like, I feel like it's very overlooked. It's spoken about, yes, and we raise awareness to it. But in the sense of actually, and I'm sorry, I just want to clarify, I don't mean the government, I mean, and the council and so forth, because we do know, they do certain schemes which help. I'm talking about, for example, our masjids. I'm talking about our community centres. I'm talking about, our clubs, how there's a lot of, martial art clubs and so forth. And I feel like we should definitely be working together. Even the churches and everything. We should be doing something more as a community.
Thank you for that kind of reflection. So you mentioned about coming together, different types of communities coming together to be to kind of support each other. So what kind of practical examples could you give?
A very good practical example would be the use of, for example, Muslims, we give sadaqah, we give a form of charity to mosques, and a lot of money goes to these mosques, and I've noticed that a lot of this money will go to, different countries outside of England, or it will go somewhere. When in reality, it could be used to be put back into the mosque to raise funds to help, rehabilitation. Because I can guarantee you, a lot of these people, for example, a lot of people in these mosques, right, they have all these people coming to Jummah and this congregational prayer, and I can guarantee you, a lot of these people know somebody that needs rehabilitation, whether it's for substance abuse, whether it's for violence. They do need that rehabilitation and they need that support. But I feel that money could be used to given back to the community, whereas it's not. It's given back to home to either build, which is good. I'm not saying that's not good, but I do feel like we should, as bad as it sounds, prioritize our community.
I think that's really important. I think it's good to have a holistic view of community, but actually sometimes we neglect on a very granular level. And I think that also on the point of financial literacy, what we talked about in the first half is something that we also neglect, or we don't even have. I think something that we don't talk about enough is financial literacy. I think a lot of issues that we face in the UK is because a lot of Muslims have this scarcity kind of mindset. They don't want to invest because firstly they probably don't know how to invest, but they always have this mentality that we need to save it for a rainy day, which I understand that comes from our parents who had little to nothing to survive on. So that's why we kind of have that perspective that what if everything crashes down, but actually we should be quite savvy with our money. We can we need to go to markets that are lucrative, but also Sharia compliant. And I think that's I think our stage as Muslims in the UK, because we've had 3 or 4 generations now in the UK, we need to be able to find out how can we create multiple streams of income so that the next generation, they can be doing work, community work, they can be in civic spaces, they can be in tech spaces, they can infiltrate every kind of sector without thinking so much about survival. And I think that's the onus should be on us, but I think we're quite complacent in that sense because we've had the foundations already, they're built for us in terms of masjids and graveyards. We've had a show before with one of our guests maybe 2 years ago who is a member of MSA Netherlands, and he was talking about how in the Netherlands, they still struggle to get spaces for Muslims in the graveyards. And so the dynamic is very different across Europe. We are very, very, very privileged in this country. And I think as Muslims right now, although we talked about finance, I think it's really important to think about, we need to think about community beyond just supporting each other in a physical sense, in terms of visiting each other, in terms of even looking after the elderly. We need to think about how can we look after the next generation as well. And even those aspects, because we're so busy with just trying to survive, we don't even have time to go visit the sick. There's something that's very encouraging in our religion. There's so much reward in visiting the sick. We're not able to fulfill our responsibilities to each other because we're still trying to survive ourselves. And I think one of the things that was mentioned in the show before, if everyone fulfills their responsibilities, then everyone gets their rights. So I think community underpins that because we're supposed to think as a collective, but actually one of the things that's happened, because it's a very capitalist society and consumerism is something that underpins it all, is that we become very individualistic. And that's not to minimize people's circumstances, but I think we need to go out of comfort zone a little bit more, and we need to go actually take the onus on ourselves and think, how can we think strategically? How can we have more output than input, right? So yeah, I think those kind of things are really important. Because it allows you to have that freedom, and I think that's what we're kind of looking for as well, to select where we can invest our energy into. Fareen, I want to talk about, because we just been talking about the importance of communities, I want to talk about the importance of engaging with communities. So my question is, I think we kind of discussed this in the last few minutes, but I want to ask, what are some ways that you think are most effective for individuals to engage with the community?
I think just for information to be available everywhere of where the the activities in the community are going on, or where you can access them. Anyone that you know from the community, someone in the community, then I know someone, then everyone starts knowing each other. So just having any kind of resources available, and then you as a person to have that, I don't know how to say, like that energy or that I don't know how to say, like
resource.
like you want the
Human
resource, you
resource.
want to go and do it, you know. I don't know I don't know how to say, but you literally have like that energy, or you just
Enthusiasm.
the enthusiasm, or like the intention to go and do something for your community.
Yeah.
I think that's really important, and it starts with us, and then you go and engage with the community. I just wanted to add, when I came to Luton, I think this is the obviously this is such a big community here, and it was so overwhelming when I came, because when I was in Spain, there was no community. Everyone's it's like each to their own, you know. No one really cares about anything. So I think the work that's been done in Luton is really good community wise. We can do obviously so much more, but you know, I came and I was so overwhelmed about the amount of support that everyone gives you in mosques and everything, and then the schools are also really good. So yeah, I just sorry, I lost my train of thought. I was saying something.
No, I just think how positive your experience. And I think for
Yes.
context, for those who don't know, Farine moved from Spain a few years ago, and English is like a fourth language. I think it's really important to mention that. And just go back to what you were saying.
Yeah, so just having the resources available and being literally just having the intention, I think, is the first thing. You wanting to go help your local mosque, for example. There's so many activities that are going on, and I volunteered in so many. There's like a charity called Friends of Bright Eyes that I went to just to help like these autistic kids and everything. And it's all completely voluntary. It comes from you, or you can, I don't know. I joined a Ghusl course to learn how to do it, in case anyone needs it, in case anyone doesn't have a family that can do it. So just you having that intention of, I want to help my community and I want to be involved, it starts from there. And then the community should have resources available, or if you join that community, then you can make that resource, you know.
Yeah.
So it's just about the intention.
100%.
And then you can become the resource.
And you can become the resource. Yeah, you can become that community that's helping some other people join it.
Yeah.
It's really lovely to hear that when you moved from Spain to here, that you felt that sense of community, and it just shows how much it can. And I think there's a lot of research actually as well to show that. In my favorite book,
Atomic Habits.
in my favorite book, it talks about the importance of having community, because when you want to thrive and you want to be successful, you need to have a sense of belonging, and being a part of a community is a part of that. And I think you can see that through history, that the most successful kind of empires, they had a very strong sense of community. And even today, certain groups of people, when they have a sense of community, they're the ones that are the most successful socially, financially. And as Muslims, we have those requisites in place. I think the next question I want to ask Alia, and I think this is something that you're kind of passionate about, is how can individuals identify the areas where the communities need the help the most?
Oh, for me, this is a very, very easy question. There are certain parts of Luton where we live where it is very, very common to see certain, let's just say, certain activities that aren't,
appropriate.
They aren't appropriate. Let's just say they aren't appropriate. And I feel like to be able to, say for example, a brother of yours, and he's engaging in them activities, go get him help. Really, go get him help. Or say for example, our imams at the masjid, and they know, this father, he's struggling with his kids, he's he's got a sister who's struggling with her kids. You take initiative. These are the leaders of our community, and when you know someone, you take initiative. Like, honestly, just take initiative. We need to have that community initiative. Even if your neighbor is elderly, or she struggles to do the shopping, something silly, she's struggling to do the shopping, or as you work for Friends of Bright Eyes, and a mother and she's struggling with her autistic son, you take initiative and offer help. And this is what community is, but everybody is so reluctant to help. I'll be honest with you, it's something so shocking to see how reluctant our Muslim brothers and sisters are to help our other Muslim brothers and sisters. But in terms of identifying areas where when it needs the most help, another thing to look out for would be in schools. For high schools, there's a lot of bullying that takes place. A lot of kids are dealing with mental health. Social media is a big thing. Social media is a really big thing. If you see a kid getting bullied on social media, call the bullies out. Call the school that the kids are going to. We need to take initiative and actually genuinely call these people out. It's not okay, to be honest. It's really not okay. Especially cyberbullying is a big thing, and you'll see a lot of people, they just keep to themselves. Or for example, certain charity events, and you see there's a lot of volunteers, especially for Inspire FM. It's really really nice to see. It's lovely to see. I respect a lot of these people, because you'll talk to some people about joining, helping out, and they'll reply with, "Oh, but that's embarrassing." It's such a common phrase. That's embarrassing. What's so embarrassing? What's so shameful about helping the people in your community, or doing something that shows that you're a representative of your culture, your religion? Because if we're not going to represent our community, who is? Do you know what I mean? And I'm not sure if this is okay to say, but I feel like there's a lot of emphasis on, oh, but the youth are bad, the youth are like this, the youth of today are this, and the youth of today are that. But who is actually helping the youth? Are the youth meant to help themselves? With all due respect, if I was to see a 16-year-old on the road in his, substance abuse or whatever, I know, obviously I could try to guide them, but if it was an older figure that said, listen, my son, or listen, my daughter, like, listen, like, this isn't okay. Let me talk to your parents, or, talk to someone, and let me get you help. It would make such a big impact. But where are those older figures? I don't see a lot of them.
I think there's a lot of points that you mentioned.
It's good.
It's very good. It's a lot of points that you just mentioned, and I think one of the things that if we're just going to unpack them, one of the first things in our religion, we have to be emotionally intelligent. And so for us to be identifying when people are in need is something that should be very intrinsic for us. So as you mentioned, the importance of neighbours, we should know when our neighbours are struggling. We should know the people around us when we're going to work. We should be very open to understanding where people are in their lives in terms of how they feel. They always say that you don't know what people are going through in their lives. So always be kind and exercise kindness. But I think for me personally I think those are the requisites that we already have in our religion. We just don't exercise them. And I think identifying it, if you yourself cannot provide that support, ask someone else, defer it to someone else, or to see what your capacity is. So say if you are not very good at communicating, and that's okay. You might not be good at communicating, you might be shy, you might not be confrontational, you might not even have the time because you have bills to pay. But what can you offer? If you're very financially literate, then maybe you can teach someone. If you got to a certain career, then mentor someone, maybe help them do their personal statement. There's so much skills that you've acquired in your life to get to the stage that you are. There's something that you can offer. Allah has given you so many bounties. Don't think about it in a very I don't know how to describe it. Don't think about it in a very black and white way. I think you have to be quite flexible in the way you think, and I think a lot of Muslims don't realize that there's so much skills that they have that younger people need and require. Mentorship is not just for education. There's so many aspects that young people need, even communication, even understanding how to organize themselves. It's something that's very undermined. You learn that over time, but imagine if we were able to support people. Okay, this is how you prioritize things and deprioritize things, and actually implicitly that will help them in interviews because they will learn the skills that they're going to be exercising. So I think sense of community, we need to know ourselves first. We need to know what can we offer, what can't we offer, and what can we offer, and then be able to deliver that. So I think that's. Do you have a thought?
Yeah, I was just gonna add on to it and say, like, as you said, okay.
As she reins her thoughts back in, I think the next kind of thing that we want to talk about. You talked about social media, and I think I'm gonna ask Fareen because she enjoys using social media. She makes the TikTok page for Sister Speak.
Yeah, I do follow us at Sister Speak.
How has technology changed the way we engage with our communities?
Obviously, it has such a big advantage because that's where you get the information from when you have to help out or you have to volunteer or anything else. But social media has made us lose so much time that we forget that there's a community out there. We're literally in a virtual community, but we're not physically anywhere. So if there's, I don't know, like a channel where you're talking about gaming or something like that, then you spend all your time there when really you enjoy it, but it's not something that you have to pour your whole time in it. And there's so many people that, like you said, there's so many people that need help out there in the community. So through social media, we can help. We can raise funds. There's like I don't know you can just basically raise funds, or you can find out when someone's sick and you can go help them. So through social media, there's obviously so many advantages, but we just don't know how to use them. Whenever we see something, it's like if it doesn't affect me, then I'm just gonna ignore it. I'm just gonna swipe. So this is something that we shouldn't do. We need to have that initiative of I'm gonna swipe. I'm gonna see what's going on. I'm gonna see what I can do to help, and that's why social media is there, but we just don't know how to use it properly.
And that brings me back to my thought. My thought of was when Miriam said that, you know, people aren't just black or white. You know, I think that very much links in with my point of, with certain people, there's a lot of depth to why they are a certain way and how they are doing it. And it's so important to be understanding of that, as well as holding them accountable, as bad as it sounds, because if they are a rational being and they do understand what they are doing, you should hold them to account, but also be, you know, understanding of, you know, their history, the situation that they're in, and, you know, try giving them as much support, whether it's emotional, whether it's just, you know, communicating with them, you know, because a lot of people, they do need that, but they can't find, for example, like us here in this room, we can have these intellectual conversations about, you know, how we feel and, you know, what we think about, and reflection. We can have these conversations. A lot of people can't. They're surrounded by people that will make jokes about it. Oh, I feel like this today. Haha, man up. You know, it's a really horrible. It's a really horrible situation to be in, because you'll laugh along with it, and then you'll be like, oh, you know what I mean? And then it bottles up, and then
you don't feel like speaking about it anymore. Yeah,
exactly. And it has an outward effect. You know, whether it's, oh, you know, doing it to the next person. There's a lot of depth to a lot of people that we don't understand. So I feel like communication, like even random people. I'm not saying go talk to random like stranger, but say for example, like you are sitting in the doctor's office and you're waiting. You know, it's nice to strike up a conversation.
Yeah.
That's what community is. Or like, oh, how are you? You know, like, or even your shop owners, you know, like, oh, how are you today? It's so nice when people just, you know, say, oh, how are you today? Or salam, they give salam to you when you walk past the street. It's so nice.
You just get that sense of community. You know, I was thinking about the same thing when we were talking about it. That sense of moral support is the biggest support you can give to anyone. You don't need to have that like financial support or anything like that. And I felt it so much when one of my family members passed away. They didn't give us anything, but them just being there for us and doing everything that obviously there's so many things that you need to arrange, the janazah, that we didn't do anything because we were grieving, obviously, but then everyone around us was so supportive in that way, and they gave us so much moral support. They came to our house, that's the moral support is the biggest thing you can give anyone that's going through a hard time. Just asking them how they are, or I don't know, doing something for them. They don't feel like cooking because they're sad, you go and give them some food. You know, that's the kind of support that we need in this community. You don't need to spend anything. All you need is time. All you need is time. You just need to spend time with everyone.
There's so many ways to engage with the community as well. Like there's a sports club that I go to. It's Project LTS, and it's more for like more older women. They have an Instagram too if you want to check it out. But it is like, honestly, like I will talk about it because it's such, like when I joined I was like, you know, you get nervous, but it's girls my age and older women, and they live in Luton, and actually one of them doesn't, and you know, you're meeting people you would have never ever thought you would have met, you know, and they're so lovely and everybody's so sweet and they're so kind, and you're bonding over something like sports, because sports for some people is a big thing. It is a big thing, you know, like netball, basketball. It brings a lot of people closer because you have that teamwork, you know. So I feel like, you know, even little, like as I said, community initiative, you know, you're doing that, you're putting that forward, you're doing that out there. So, you know, young women or women, older women, especially for older women, you know, how, you know, because a lot of older women, they don't want to go to the gym. It's embarrassing for them, you know. So for them to have that women's only space where they can exercise and still feel like they are not a burden, or they're not like, you know, and they feel good about themselves. It's so important. It's so important. I mean, I do feel as though, I'm not sure if there's any boys ones, but I feel like we need the same for young men as well, especially like younger, like, you know, 16, high school.
Yeah, when they're very
age.
conscious about
their body, yeah.
And it needs to be financially, you know,
affordable,
yeah, because, you know,
someone in high school can't afford
poverty is a thing. Like, I don't feel like a lot of people, because we're very, very privileged, alhamdulillah, a lot of people don't understand how much people in our community are struggling financially. It's a really big thing that we don't talk about. Yeah, and even if you are not like you can't afford anything, there's so many free things that you can honestly join. There's like so many sports thing that goes on. You just have to do your research. And even if there is a fee, then it's only, I think it's a minimum of like £5 for people like this. And if you can't afford it, I feel like the person in front of you will be nice enough to let you in. So all you have to do is literally look for it in any community initiative and be active and involved in it.
There's a lot of thoughts that you both have shared, and I think one of the main things that kind of struck me is the idea of using social media, because that's one of the main question was. And I think for me personally, it's really interesting how age can make a difference of that. For me personally, I feel like the people that I follow and the things that I see in my algorithm is very selective. So the reason why we have such a selective amount of guests on our show that are very pioneering is because I think social media has exposed them to me. Had I not had social media, I would have known about these great initiatives. For example, we've had Muslim Senses on our show, we'd had Pillars App on our show, we'd have the Islamic Makers co-founder on our show, multiple people on our show. And I think if I didn't have social media, I wouldn't even know these kind of initiatives exist. So I think it's also the way you're selective in person, in reality, you should be selective on social media.
Yeah.
But I do think that comes with time. So your interests can be actually cultivated online because you're able to access people. And for example, when you're starting out in life and you're using LinkedIn and you're trying to get opportunities, you'll see people that are older than you and doing the jobs that you want to land, you can reach out to them. There's nothing stopping you from messaging them and say, salam or hello, how did you get to your role? Your accolade is very impressive. So I think in terms of community, that the point that you both made, that there is an online community and sometimes you can disconnect from the reality, but also it's using it to your advantage and having that balance. And I think that's kind of the overarching kind of theme in the show today, that it's just having that balance, but also making sure that we are contributing to our communities as effectively, as efficiently as we can, and also understanding ourselves, because we all have something to offer, but also not to make sure that we don't burn out. I think that's really important as well. And on that note, I want to talk about mental health. We are on the last 2 minutes of the show, but I just want to quickly ask Fareen, how can people maintain their mental health whilst trying to contribute to the community? Because, as you said, there's so many factors that we have to contend with. So very quickly, if you can give your thoughts.
I'm just gonna say not to. It doesn't have to lead to burnout. Obviously, it's a community, so everyone's gonna help you through it. When you have less mental health issues, you don't have to put yourself at risk to help other people. You know how they say in the plane that you have to put your mask on first, and then that's what you should do as well. And if you need that support, there's so many resources. You can help to a close family member or a close friend, but definitely don't put yourself at risk. And it's about community, so that community will help you. And then once you're ready, you have, obviously it's not like you don't have any mental health issues, but once you've worked it out, and then you can get out and maybe you can help that. I don't know, if you have depression, let's say you're involved in the community, then that might cheer you up. So anything that you can do, but first, work it out, talk with a friend or with family member.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. Don't risk your own mental health to support the community, because as they say in the allegory, you can't pour into a cup that's empty. If you're empty, you won't be able to pour into that cup. So I think self-awareness is key, and I think that's what creates a really strong community, is when people are self-aware, when people are emotionally intelligent, when people want to contribute, and when people know that we're doing it for the sake of Allah. So having your intention is really, really important. So I think that kind of rounds off and the main half of the show. Thank you, Alia and Fareen, for contributing, and we look forward to having our next topic, which will be very interesting next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. We stream our daily broadcast on inspirefm.org. You'll find all our daily updates on our social media at Inspire FM Luton.